On this Thursday night, Mark Carney launches into the Liberal leadership race. Why he's in it and who he's already going after.
When lifelong politicians rely on slogans and slander and sound bites.
As the Liberal caucus starts picking sides. Deepening fears about the damage U.S. tariffs could do.
We'll fight like hell to protect our people.
As the Prime Minister unveils his new weapon to take them on. A warning about the ultra-wealthy, how U.S. President Joe Biden says tech titans are threatening democracy. Plus, he was groundbreaking, bold, and embraced the bizarre. Remembering influential and innovative movie and TV director David Lynch.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Mark Carney has made it official. He is running to replace Justin Trudeau as leader of the federal Liberal Party. Carney, an economist and banker, has never run for office before, but he has run the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada. And that experience, plus his love of hockey, was a big part of his pitch today.
I've helped save 2 economies. I know how business works and I know how to make it work for you. And I'm coming into this match, coming into this game, knowing that we are well behind. But we're getting warmed up, and we're going to head out in that third period, and we're going to win.
Carney chose to break the news in his hometown of Edmonton, in keeping with his claim that he's not an Ottawa insider. And he took direct shots at the federal Conservative leader, dismissing Pierre Poilievre's claim that Canada is broken as just a slogan that won't solve problems. Carney also said today he has resigned all senior executive roles he held in the private sector, including at Bloomberg and Brookfield Asset Management, as well as the UN Special Envoy on Climate Action. David Akin has our top story tonight.
I'm back home in Edmonton to declare my candidacy for leader of the Liberal Party and Prime Minister of Canada.
At the age of 59, the former Bank of Canada governor is, for the first time in his life, putting his name on a ballot.
I know I'm not the usual suspect when it comes to politics. But this is no time for politics as usual. No, it's not the time for lifelong politicians such as Pierre Poilievre.
He says he'll figure out what riding to run in later, but for now, Carney argued he is best able to make a clean break from the unpopular Trudeau government with a different focus on economic issues.
I know I'm not the only Liberal in Canada who believes that the Prime Minister and his team let their attention wander from the economy too often. I won't lose focus.
Details of those policies will be announced in the coming weeks, he said. The Conservatives, though, have been expecting Carney's candidacy, and the party debuted this attack ad hours before he launched.
Carbon tax Carney. He's just like Justin.
Meanwhile, the Liberal caucus began choosing sides. As many as 30 of the 152 Liberal MPs are endorsing Carney. But a half dozen or so are already endorsing former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland.
I support Chrystia because of all the things that I've witnessed her firsthand in doing.
One of those on Team Freeland is the Health Minister, Mark Holland. He's the first cabinet minister to declare for any candidate. Freeland will launch her campaign Sunday in Toronto, while Karina Gould, the government House leader, is expected to launch her bid for leader Sunday in Burlington, Ontario. They will all join current and former Liberal MPs Jaime Batiste, Chandra Arya, and Frank Baylis, who have also indicated they're running. The Natural Resources Minister, Jonathan Wilkinson, also said today he is still considering a run for the leader's job, though he seemed to hint that rather than try to win the leadership, he might stick with his current role as part of the core cabinet team trying to fight off Trump's tariffs. Donna.
Okay, David Akin, thank you. Carney and others running to be Liberal leader need to win over the party members first, and whoever wins will then quickly face Canadians in a federal election. Their challenge will be to set themselves apart from Justin Trudeau, and that means ditching some of the policies he championed. Taria Isri reports.
Really good to be here.
Chrystia Freeland championed consumer carbon pricing for years.
8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back with the carbon rebate. 8 out of 10 Canadians.
More money back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians.
But she says she can no longer back a policy that's become politically toxic. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is standing by it until the very end.
Obviously, people running in elections and running for the leadership will be able to put forward their own ideas about how to fight climate change. But I'm very, very proud of our record.
A source close to Freeland says she'd get rid of consumer carbon pricing and replace it with a system the provinces back instead. She is ready to make difficult decisions to meet our emissions targets and make sure big polluters pay for their outsized emissions. But she will not fight Canadians on a policy they have been clear they do not support.
Have you decided about whether or not you're going to run?
The reversal comes as Freeland prepares to launch her campaign for the party's top job.
She was one of a very loyal soldier of Justin Trudeau, so there's limits to what she can say or criticize about the past.
Freeland's main competition, former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney, would not say whether he'd keep carbon pricing.
I don't do a little leak, I don't do a soundbite, I do a comprehensive plan that addresses all the aspects, and you'll see that in the coming weeks.
There are questions about whether Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's strategy will have to shift. Can he still make axing the tax, as he puts it, the ballot box issue in the next federal election, if his potential Liberal opponents are already suggesting they'll ditch it? Taria Isri, Global News, Montreal.
How to deal with President-elect Donald Trump's tariff threat is a looming crisis for Canada. Today, BC's Premier accused Trump of making a declaration of economic war.
This is a direct economic threat to BC families. It is an attack on families in our province. It is an attack on Canadians.
David Eby says Trump's tariffs and a response from Canada could cost BC $69 billion in GDP by 2028 and result in the loss of 124,000 jobs. The premiers and the federal government are working on a response to those potential tariffs. A retaliation plan is expected to roll out in stages and could hit all American steel and aluminum products with counter tariffs. And Prime Minister Trudeau is enlisting help. He's created a Canada-U.S. Relations Council to come up with ideas and bolster Canada's case with U.S. politicians. As Mike Armstrong reports, Alberta remains the missing link in the Team Canada approach.
On the morning, he announced a new Council on Canada-U.S. Relations. One of the Prime Minister's events was a meeting with members of Unifor, the country's largest private sector union. The head of that organization is one of the members of Justin Trudeau's new group.
Well, I was very honored to be asked to do this work. Our country is facing a very serious threat right now.
The council is made up of leaders from different sectors, science, business, and politics. It includes a former ambassador to the U.S., as well as two former premiers, Jean Charest from Quebec and Rachel Notley from Alberta.
I would actually like to point out to Danielle Smith.
But it is the current Alberta Premier Trudeau is singling out. Wednesday, Danielle Smith was the only premier that didn't sign on to the joint statement meant to show a united Team Canada response to Trump's tariff threats. Trudeau says Smith is instead worrying only about her oil and gas industry.
That's part of her job. But every single premier other than Danielle Smith then chose to put Canada first.
I'm thrilled to be back here today.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford wasn't quite as strong on Smith, but says he's having trouble understanding why she seems to want to go it alone. All premiers, he says, are trying to protect their industries.
I'll just leave it at that. Country comes first, and we'll decide. Yeah.
Now, Smith met Donald Trump on the weekend and is set to attend his inauguration Monday. Her response to the criticism came by social media. Smith says threatening the U.S. with tariffs on energy exports threatens the livelihoods of Albertans and Canadians, and that Alberta taxpayers should be treated with respect.
Not only have the Liberals weakened our economy, now they're resorting to dividing our people. Divide and conquer.
It's undermining Canada's bargaining position.
The Prime Minister's new Council on Canada-U.S. Relations is set to meet for a first time Friday. Members are also being told there will be more meetings once Trump moves into the White House. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
One last note about tariffs and Trump. Had Ontario's Premier wore yesterday is proving to be popular. Doug Ford's Canada is not for sale baseball cap is a twist on Trump's Make America Great Again hat. An Ottawa company called Jack Pine Dynamic Branding designed the hats a week ago. The company's founder thanked the Premier for the promotion and says sales are already skyrocketing. Now to Israel and Gaza and that ceasefire and hostage release deal. It is not in place yet. Israel's security cabinet has delayed voting on it. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing security minister has threatened to quit if the deal is approved, and that could cause the government to collapse. In the meantime, Israel's military has kept up attacks on Gaza. Vincent McAviney reports.
After a day of celebration in Gaza and Israel, Thursday again brought uncertainty and renewed violence. Deadly Israeli airstrikes on Gaza, killing and injuring more Palestinians, including civilians, according to the Hamas-run health ministry, ahead of the planned ceasefire and hostage agreement set to start Sunday. Is this the truce they talk about? What did this young girl, this child, do to deserve this? Yet in Khan Yunis, flickers of hope too. 8 or 10 people from our family were martyred. Some of them are still under the rubble. Yet the joy is still indescribable that this bloodshed is stopped. But there is also anger across this region. Outside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office, protesters, including families of hostages and soldiers killed in Gaza, staged a fake funeral.
It's a very dangerous deal for the hostages that will stay in Gaza, for the security of Israel.
Political tensions inside Netanyahu's fragile coalition have soared. A cabinet vote on the agreement now delayed until Friday. We will not be a part of a government that will approve a deal that constitutes a huge reward for Hamas and terror. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken urging calm after months of diplomatic efforts to get this far.
It's not exactly surprising that in a process and a negotiation that has been this challenging and this fraught, you may get a loose end.
For now, trucks are gathering on the border, ready to deliver much-needed aid to Palestinians. Those who need it most holding on to hope a ceasefire will be signed, so that even a temporary peace can be given a chance. Vincent McAviney, Global News, London.
Foreign media is not allowed access into Gaza. It's difficult to hear from people there. Global News has been in touch with a camera operator who has shot some footage for us throughout the conflict. And earlier today, he spoke with people in Khan Yunis, where there is some hope in the bustling streets. Here is a little bit of what they said.
في تخوف، الكل خايف إنه ما تتمش الأمور. ولكن احنا نأمل ذلك.
ايش بدنا نسوي؟ نرجع على دورنا وان شاء الله كل واحد يرجع على داره بالسلام ان شاء الله.
والله متأملين متفائلين ويعني مبسوطين في الهدنة واهم شيء الاسعار انها نزلت.
وان شاء الله ربنا يصبر هالشعب ووقف لنا اولاد الحلال اللي يبنوا قطاع غزة.
The Canadian government is boosting financial support for Palestinians who have made it out of Gaza and come to Canada to join family members in the last 15 months. Adults will receive a one-time payment of $3,000 and $1,500 per child. That's to help with food, clothing, and housing. 550 people have arrived in Canada under the temporary resident program for extended family in Gaza. Power, wealth, and influence. Coming up, why U.S. President Biden believes some tech giants are endangering America's democracy. Fire crews in California are getting a slight break as the Santa Ana winds ease, but dangerous conditions are expected to return to the region next week. 2 more deaths have now been confirmed. That brings the total number of people killed to 27. More remains are expected to be found as search crews go through neighborhoods destroyed by the fires.
There are areas that we are holding because we believe there may be deceased victims there. We do have 31 active missing persons reported.
The wildfires have destroyed more than 12,300 structures. The largest fire, the Palisades fire, has burned 9,500 hectares, and it is now just 22% contained. U.S. President Joe Biden delivered his farewell address from the Oval Office Wednesday night. He reflected on his legacy, but he also had a warning about oligarchs. Biden said Americans need to be on guard against what he calls a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And Gaviola reports on what Biden said and what it means for Canadians.
Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy.
The ultra-rich wielding outsized influence on American politics is nothing new. But Biden's warning about the growing reach of the titans of technology is a sign of the times.
Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, they've all bent the knee to Trump. They've all indicated that they are fully on board with Donald Trump's authoritarian agenda.
An oligarch like Elon Musk advising the president on policy decisions, having never actually stood for election, never received a vote to give him any legitimacy.
Blaine Haggart's new book, The New Knowledge, examines how technology is reshaping global power. He sees a shift in the U.S., where Silicon Valley's interests are taking over from the financial industries, and Canada will need to navigate.
Well, this is going to be a very perilous development for Canada.
The most powerful men in tech and AI have used their influence and money to get Trump into the White House.
What Canadians should be fearful of is the fact that traditional norms, ethics, and old-fashioned values that we think in terms of the separation between decency and corruption, those have completely evaporated in the U.S.
Canadian businessman and fellow reality TV star Kevin O'Leary makes no secret that he has Trump's ear as he jockeys to purchase TikTok.
What did Trump say? I mean, Trump, and what role do you think he has?
He said to me, and I'm just being transparent, tell me why I care about this. And I said to him, because there's 6 million American businesses that are generating $10 billion in revenue and keeping their families alive with this. And you also used it, of 170 million young people, got you elected.
Trump takes office next week, but we're already seeing signs of what his administration is ushering in. Donna?
All right, and Gaviola in Toronto. Thank you. Astronautical firsts ahead, the space milestones taking steps and blasting off in 2025.
Wonderful views from the helmet cam.
This is the first spacewalk of 2025 on the International Space Station, and the astronaut involved wasn't even supposed to be up there. Sunny Williams arrived on the ISS more than 7 months ago and has stayed a lot longer than she expected. She and Butch Wilmore were due to return to Earth after a week-long mission last June, but technical issues pushed that return to this spring. Wilmore is scheduled for his own spacewalk next week. A milestone today for billionaire Jeff Bezos and his space company Blue Origin. The New Glenn rocket reached orbit in its first test flight. The launch was originally scrubbed on Monday because of technical issues. There are still some kinks to work out, though. The rocket's reusable first-stage boosters failed to return to Earth. The mission is being seen as an important first step for Blue Origin to take on its rival, SpaceX. Bizarrely brilliant. Next, a look at how David Lynch left his footprint on cinema.
Vaughn into the windup in his first offering, just a bit outside.
Baseball has lost one of its greatest voices, Hall of Fame broadcaster Bob Uecker. He was known as Mr. Baseball, and he'd spent more than 50 years calling games for the Milwaukee Brewers. In his 50s, he began acting. His humor captured on screen in his play-by-play punchlines in the film Major League and his role as George Owens on the 1980s sitcom Mr. Belvedere. Uecker was 90 years old. Hollywood is mourning the loss of a visionary director. The work of David Lynch is hard to miss and impossible to forget. From Eraserhead to Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet, his idiosyncratic style won millions of fans over the decades, and he influenced other filmmakers and artists. Lynch died today at the age of 78. Heidi Petracek looks at his impact.
It was a cultural obsession for millions from the mind of a visionary creator.
It is happening again.
Twin Peaks and its central mystery captured a darkness and eccentricity unlike anything on network television in the 90s. David Lynch created, wrote, directed, and co-starred in the series and its 2017 return, a Renaissance man whose name and singular Lynchian vision became shorthand for a style all his own.
Do you consider yourself, in your heart, a painter or a director?
I'm both.
He began as a visual artist before debuting on film with the surreal odyssey of 1977's Eraserhead. From there, Hollywood, and his first Best Director nomination for The Elephant Man. With his career poised to explode, he instead experienced failure. His adaptation of Dune, a critical and box office flop.
I am Usul, Paul Muad'Dib.
His choices from there seem to say never again. Challenging audiences and critics for decades. The nightmarish Mulholland Drive, often regarded as one of the greatest American films ever made. But it was Twin Peaks for which he is most often remembered.
Having enough autonomy to be boundaryless and absurd and hilarious and terrifying.
Lynch had awards and accolades, but an Oscar eluded him until he received an honorary one in 2019. He insisted he would never retire, even after an emphysema diagnosis. Lynch's family celebrating his life, writing in a statement, "There's a big hole in the world now that he's no longer with us. But as he would say, keep your eye on the donut and not on the hole." David Lynch was 78.
Keep your eye on the donut. That is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Lac St. Louis in Pointe-Claire, Quebec. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Carolyn Jarvis will be at the anchor desk tomorrow, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.